Hello and welcome to another Magic Duels gameplay. Today we're doing something a little bit different since I'm participating in the Steam Showdown tournament organized by fellow YouTuber Nighthawk over at the No Goblins Allowed forums. For this particular tournament we have shared deck lists, so that means that we know what our opponent is playing in advance. And this also means that we have to keep playing the same deck for the duration of the tournament. So here's the deck that I chose to bring to the tournament. It's a pretty standard mono-red aggro deck, since I expected a lot of slow ramp decks, and mono-red is one of the better ways to fight all the ramp decks in the format. And here's the deck list of our round 1 opponent, and as you can see, Beard brought a Naya ramp deck to the tournament. So a pretty decent matchup for the mono-red deck, as long as the opponent doesn't play a Radiant Flames, because that's one of the cards that can certainly swing the matchup in the opponent's favor. I will be doing commentary after the fact as we replay the entire match, since I didn't record my commentary live this time around. So let's get to it. In game 1 we get to be on the play, which is great for this deck, since mono-red gets a lot better when it gets to be on the play. And our first hand is an easy mulligan. Our second hand is pretty great, since we have a turn 1 Glory Chaser that we know our opponent can't really interact with, especially when on the draw we have a 2-drop in Mage-Ring Bully with a bunch of non-creature spells to enable prowess. So we have a pretty good start here. Of course, if our opponent has something like a Radiant Flames, we could still be in trouble. Attack with our Glory Chaser, get it renowned, so now it also has Menace, making it even harder to block. So next turn we could play the Arsonist and enchant it with the Infectious Bloodlust, which gives the Arsonist haste, or we could put the Infectious Bloodlust on one of our other creatures. So our opponent just plays a Plains and passes, no turn 2 plays, and we know they don't have any instants we have to worry about. So we have a third land, and here we decide to go for the Infectious Bloodlust on the Glory Chaser instead of playing out the Arsonist and enchanting the Arsonist, since we know our opponent has a bunch of beefy creatures, and if we can enhance the power of our Glory Chaser, we'll be sure to get in for a few extra points of damage. This could backfire if our opponent puts a Suppression Bonds on our Glory Chaser, but that's a turn 4 play, which is pretty slow. And here we also decide to run out the Arsonist, since we're not really playing around a Radiant Flames at this point, since looking at the opponent's lands, it's pretty unlikely that they don't get to play a Radiant Flames for the full amount of Converge if they have it, since they have all colors already. And here they play out a Nissa, which conveniently we can Fiery Impulse away and attack with everyone, as well as play out the Dragon Fodder. So we'll have a double prowess enabled for the Mage-Ring Bully, and we'll get in there for a pretty large amount of damage. So at this point, unless our opponent can top deck a Radiant Flames, we are looking very good. And our opponent has a 5/5 Woodland Wanderer. So here we can just untap, and we do draw a land, so might as well play out the Firebird and attack with everyone. So game 1 goes to the mono-red deck. In game 2 we are lucky to be on the play once again, and this opening hand is pretty tempting since we have a turn 1 a Glory Chaser again, but the rest of the hand seems pretty slow, so we decide to mulligan it. And here we keep a hand that's not great, but we do have turn 1 Foundry Street Denizen into turn 2 Dragon Fodder, which will make the Denizen a 3/1 and get a pretty nice clock going. The Fiery Impulses in our hand are pretty weak, since the only targets our opponent has in the early game are Gatecreeper Vines, and there's also one Felidar Cup that we can kill with the Fiery Impulses, so not a lot of targets that we can really kill with the Fiery Impulse. But we do top deck a Infectious Bloodlust, which is a pretty nice follow-up here, since most of the opponent's removal is damage based, which means we will get a second Infectious Bloodlust if our opponent gets rid of the creature that's enchanted by the first Infectious Bloodlust. So we get in for 3 damage, put the opponent down to 17. They play a second land but don't have a turn 2 play. We draw into an Exquisite Firecraft, which will be able to deal an additional 4 points of damage to the opponent's face. But here of course we're still just gonna play out the Infectious Bloodlust, enchanting a token, since we don't have to worry about any bounce spells, and this way we diversify our threats a little bit. So we get in for 5 points, put the opponent down to 12, and at a virtual 8 life if you consider the Exquisite Firecraft. So hopefully we don't face a sweeper here, and instead it's just a Nissa's Pilgrimage ramping the opponents for 1. We draw another land, so we have to get in for 5 and hope for the best. Put the opponent down to 7, and here we might as well play out the Exquisite Firecraft in case we draw into a 4-drop we want to play next turn. This way, if we draw into a Firebird, for example, we don't give the opponent the opportunity to play a Nissa's Renewal to gain life back, and their opponent does have a Rolling Thunder, but only for 3, so it won't be able to take care of all our creatures. Instead, just kills the Denizen and the Enchanted Goblin token, which means we still get an Infectious Bloodlust, which will be able to enchant our remaining Goblin token, which will be able to attack for the win, as we still have these 2 useless Fiery Impulses in our hand. We were pretty lucky to be on the play both games, and also pretty lucky to dodge a Radiant Flames or any life gain spells from the opponent. So that's gonna do it for this gameplay. I wanna thank you for watching, I hope you enjoyed, and as always, have a nice day.